This is the second generation X1 Nano from Lenovo. This is a thin and light business person's machine, something that you'll take with you on planes, trains, flying across the world to go to business meetings. And it has a nice military specification. It has good coating on the outside, a little bit on the fingerprint heavy end, which is unfortunate. More on that in a minute. And it also has very little in terms of I/O. So be aware of that. If you need full-size HDMI, and hey, maybe you want a bigger display, go with the 14-inch Carbon. That's an awesome machine, not too much more expensive, even when on sale, and it'll give you more in terms of I/O. So on the left-hand side, we have a headphone jack and 2 Thunderbolt ports, and on the right, all you have is the power button located right here, which is actually very good. It's recessed in, so it's not easy to hit, and since there are no other ports, there's really no reason to put your hand here and click around and accidentally turn the thing on or off, put it in sleep mode, so that's good. It is incredibly thin. It is only 2.14 pounds, so walking around with this thing is going to be easy, and you're probably not even going to notice that it's in your backpack. It also comes with this really small charger at 65 watts, of course through USB-C, because that's your only input, and I do have to send this back to Lenovo after the review is done, so I left the plastic on. But it didn't melt, so that's a good sign. Now the machine did get a little bit warm on me when I had multiple applications open and one browser with multiple tabs. I like to use Brave, but in this case I was using Edge, because I think most people are going to be using Edge, if not Chrome, but hey, I went with Edge, because it's Chrome-based. And anyway, or Chromium-based, no anybody in the comments get all pissy on me. So, 6 to 8 hours of battery life is what you can expect on this model, which is the 1280p, which has a full 28 watts of power, 16 gigs of RAM soldered on board that runs at 6400 megahertz, and a 1 terabyte SSD, which is M.2 2242 Gen 4. It's one of those Opal drives. So the display is 2K, and it gets up to 450 nits of brightness, runs at 60 hertz. There is a way that you can get slightly better battery life, I believe. If you go with the i5 1240p trim and the 5200 megahertz of RAM, I think it'll run with a little bit less power draw, and you'll get a little bit more battery life. I don't know how much more, maybe a half an hour at the settings. In my situation, maybe a half an hour or an hour. Sometimes every minute really matters, right? Although on the other hand, there's chargers on planes. So I don't know, maybe you'd be fine. Keyboard's fantastic. Not as much key travel as something like the X1 Extreme Gen 5, but good key travel. I had no problem typing on it. It felt like home, right? It's a ThinkPad keyboard. And the trackpad is a bit on the small side, but it's probably as big as they can make it since it's such a small device. This 2K display is only 13 inches, but it looks super good, and you can sign in with Windows Hello. Let me do that real quick. Boom, I'm in. Now, since it's running on Intel, if the machine goes into hibernate mode, then it takes about almost 30 seconds to open it up, wait for it to turn on, and then you get logged in. That's unfortunate, but this is what we live with in x86 world. The camera is okay. It's rated at 1080p. I think it's 2.1 megabit. Yeah, oh my God. Brain fart. 2.1 megapixels. That's the word I'm looking for. And it's kind of potatoey. It's not the best. Now here we have a Think shutter, so you can block the camera. It does not disable the camera, just a heads up, but you can block it. And I saw this just the other day. I didn't notice it the first few days. That's really cool. X1 Nano, etched right into the bottom right. It feels really cool, and it looks good too. Now, for some reason, you probably saw here how just gnarly the lid has gotten. But the keyboard deck, not including the trackpad, the keyboard deck is super clean. And it's not like I'm not putting my fingers on this thing. I am. And I'm a pretty clean guy, so I'm not even sure why the lid got so dirty. It came to me in perfect condition. This is a review unit. It was flawless. I may be the first one to have touched it. But for some reason, whatever they're doing here for coating is so much better than what's on the lid. Like, just down here, it doesn't pick up fingerprints quite the same way. So they do, and they kind of fade away. So the inside looks really clean, but the top, if you're a business person, you probably want to clean this before you walk into a meeting with like a prospective buyer or a customer. Okay, the keyboard is backlit. It functions great. You have your multimedia keys along the top with a function lock, and this also comes with the Lenovo Vantage ThinkPad software, so you can get, work through your updates and stuff like that. And if you have a warranty, you can manage the warranty through the app, which is pretty cool. So, Yes, 6 to 8 hours of battery life. I want to be clear, the way I test these things, I just use them for work. So Outlook, Microsoft Office applications in Chrome, and Teams. So Teams, OneDrive, those can be battery hogs in my experience. So if you do a lot of syncing with OneDrive, like you're constantly in there with a corporate connection, I think that can really mess with your battery draw. I didn't connect to my business OneDrive. I only connected to my personal OneDrive, and that's where I got my 6 to 8 hours of battery life. So you might be able to tweak a few things here and there. If you really pay attention to the activity settings, the activity monitor, and tweak some settings, you might be able to get better battery draw, but battery life. So anyway, that's just out there for your consideration. I do recommend this laptop. Now the i5 spec with 16 gigs of RAM and a 0.5 terabyte SSD, it does run $2,500, but with Lenovo sales, like the one happening right now here at the end of October, it's $1,385, which is not the end of the world pricing. You can compare this to something like an XPS 13, which is all aluminum and a glass display, glass finish instead of matte. And I think that's probably about the same price, when it's not on sale. Now, on the other hand, you can spec it up to an i7 1280p with 1 terabyte of storage. I think the sweet spot, though, is the $3,000 MSRP trim, which is the i7 1260p with 1 terabyte storage and 16 gigs of PCIe, LPDDR5 5200 megahertz. That one on sale is $1,640, which is now more expensive than the XPS, but then you're not dealing with the typical XPS quality issues. So it's good if you're traveling and you want the ThinkPad, you want some of the military specifications that come with it, you want like the V Pro processor. Actually, these don't come in V Pro, do they? I'm gonna have to check, I don't know. But anyway, sometimes organizations who buy ThinkPads on behalf of employees, they can only buy ThinkPads. They can only order from Lenovo, right? Like there's a thing there. Maybe they can buy from other brands. I'm not 100% sure. It kind of depends on the company. But if you're one of those employees who can only get ThinkPads, you'll want this one if you don't need HDMI and if you don't need killer battery life, but you want something ultra portable. So hope you found it helpful. Catch you on the next one. Cheers.